Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. Darren Saul here, your host of Soul Searching, the Soul Recruitment Podcast, episode 40 today. I hope everybody's doing fantastically well. I have a sensational guest here in front of me. Wendy Alexander is with us to talk all about how to negotiate the job, pay, or perks you dream of. How are you doing, Wendy?
Really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well. I'm looking forward to hearing much, much more from you today.
Thanks. Looking forward to sharing.
Thank you. Wendy helps stuck mid-level professionals negotiate their dream job, ace their interviews, and grow their income to give them the life they want. We're in a white-hot job market with way more job opportunities than candidates, but our world has changed overnight by a bug called COVID. We have soaring inflation, a war brewing in Europe, which will have global implications. So the need to be exceptional when looking for work is a prerequisite. Wendy is going to share with us her tips and experiences for how to craft a solid resume and LinkedIn profile. So people say, I have to meet this person. She's going to elaborate on the skills needed to ace any interview, as well as give us concrete practical steps for how to ask for and get what we want. So once again, welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I love the sign, your name of your business, Happy Career Hub.
Yes.
How did that come about? Did that just come about?
So that's really only just tested today. We actually want to get a foam sign, but we thought we would need to test the space because I have an upstairs office on a 3-tier townhouse. Oh, nice. And so there's lots of great natural light that comes in here, but it is a small space. So I just wanted to make sure things work. So you're the first one to see it and test it out.
Fantastic. Everybody out there, you're watching this for the first time. So Wendy, I'd love to hear your story. Tell us a bit more about how did you get into this field of work, why you love it so much, why you're so passionate about it. And then we're going to jump into some great tips and tricks for job seekers.
Okay, so I kind of preface my story by saying I turned my mess into my success.
I love it.
Because so the journey for me started over 20 years ago when my relationship ended and I was left emotionally and financially and physically broken, I call it. It was kind of my rock bottom. I was 4 months pregnant. So I was about to raise a kid on my own. And all I could think about, the big focus for me was, I have to make more money.
Absolutely.
I need a better job. That was all I cared about. And of course, bringing the baby to term, because there was a lot of trauma around all of that.
Wow, yeah.
So once she was born, I used my natural talents, which is writing. I've always been a writer. I've been journaling since I was a kid. I wrote little stories when I was a kid. I was fascinated by the written word, always have been, probably always will be. And then there's the curious nature. And so I'm a natural researcher. So combining that love of writing and my natural propensity to research, I went on an expedition or an exploration to figure out how can I earn more money? How can I present myself in a way where someone's going to give me a shot at something where I can, increase my income?
Nice.
And so I started rewriting my resume, and I must have written it a gazillion times trying to, and because I knew the long 10-pager, 8-pager, I knew that was a boring resume. I knew it wasn't compelling, but I didn't really know how to put it together. And then the other thing I did was I started getting friendly with recruiters and with hiring managers.
Good.
And that was a very difficult time financially for me, but every spare cent I had, I saved to buy these people coffees. Wow. So I could pick their brains.
Fantastic. I love it.
That was kind of what I did. And I was like, I need to know how this works. I need to know how to get past all those gatekeepers, right?
Fantastic. I love this.
And so bought these people coffees and picked their brains. People were great. I mean, I think in those times, 20 something years ago, a lot of recruiters built that personal relationship with people.
Yep.
They maybe you'd only get about 10 or 15 people applying for a job. So they could do it. Now we've got hundreds of people applying for one job. So it's a little bit more difficult.
Definitely.
But I built that relationship, picked their brains, and then through their guidance, mentorship, my own writing skills, I started writing winning resumes. I knew that they were winning resumes because I started to get callbacks.
Love it.
Every time I was submitting for jobs, I was getting callbacks, and I was in a position where I could kind of pick and choose.
Fantastic.
And so, and within 6 months of starting that whole process of research and writing, I landed a gig that increased my income by $45,000. And I was like, okay, something's working here.
Wow.
So that was great. But then also people around me, so colleagues, there was a handful of colleagues and some friends and family saw where I'd come from. They all, they knew my struggles. They knew what I'd been through. They knew the rock bottom I had hit.
Yeah.
And then, you know, suddenly I'm on this trajectory. So they came for help. And I started to write their resumes, and I started to work with them with my system that I created. And they started getting jobs, and they started increasing their incomes. And then I realized I had a business. And so I turned that into a business, but it was very part-time because I remained in corporate full-time for 20 years after that.
Wow.
20 plus years, yeah, 21, 22 years. So I had a full-time job in corporate. I also ended up in hiring roles. So I ended up working in the project management office space, and I was like the PMO manager, responsible for putting the teams together to deliver these high-profile programs and projects, right, in information technology. Worked for all the major banks, you know, the consulting places like KPMG, NCR, all of those. And because I was the hiring person, I really got to understand what I wanted to see in a resume. And so my process just got refined through me hiring as well.
Love it.
And building relationships and building networks, professional networks. And so it's a system based on my own personal experience of getting what I needed to get for myself. Also, the person wearing the hiring manager's hat. And that's how I've combined it. And probably 3 years ago, 2018, and 4 years ago now, I went full-time in the business.
Sensational.
My daughter was grown. I was like, yep, she's doing her own thing now. I can go do my own thing. You know, you kind of can have a little bit of freedom because all those bills for school and the fees and the camp fees and everything is suddenly not your responsibility anymore. So decided to go for it full time, and I've been doing it full time for the last 4 years.
Wow. And so really for 20 years, you've been working part-time, helping people secure roles, as well as hiring yourself within your own corporate role.
Correct. So the combined experience was incredible.
Yeah.
And it has given me a system that I know has worked. My success rate is quite high, you know, in terms of once I transform people's career profile, they tend to get what they want.
Yeah.
And it's because it comes from that two sets of experiences.
Yeah. And do you think that in that time, things have changed in a way where what might have been more important 15, 20 years ago in the ideal candidate is not the same as what we look for now? Or are there things that are always underlying indicators of a quality candidate that never change?
Well, I think there have been some changes. I see certainly, I mean, back in our days, we used to write resumes that seemed to be very task and responsibility focused. That has changed for sure.
Yes.
Because we've got hundreds of candidates. In some cases, you know, I've seen or spoken with managers who are getting 200 applicants for a role.
Correct.
They've got to try and sift through. So you have to stand out.
Yeah.
And you have to show a hiring person why you are the better candidate, and so it's not going to happen with you regurgitating a resume that looks like a job description.
Correct. Yeah.
You need to tell them that you've achieved. You need to show your value, and you do that by achievement. So one of the things I have seen change in the last I'd say 5 to 10 years is that resumes have become very achievements focused.
Nice.
They also need to be sharp and succinct. Nobody wants to read a 10-pager. Nobody even wants to read a 5-pager. People haven't got time. When they've got that many applicants, you need to tell them in about 2 pages why you're the right person. Yep. So your selling skills have to be strong. Yep. You know, you've got to market yourself in the resume. With regards to things not changing, look, character, quiet confidence, and not arrogance and cockiness, that's never going to change.
Great.
Right? People will sit opposite you in an interview and get your vibe immediately.
Yep.
Right? And so if someone's in an interview and they insecure, I found that come out in 2 ways. Either they cocky or arrogant, which is an absolute turnoff.
Yep.
Or they nervous and waffling too much. Now, I think interviewers don't mind a little bit of nervousness. They expect it.
Yep, especially at the beginning of the interview as well.
Correct. But at some point, they want to see a level of confidence. They want to see that you know your professional story, that you know how your professional story lines up with their job requirements.
Nice.
And that you, the right culture fit. So that they want to know that you can work with their people.
Yep. And i.e., I just want to jump in, i.e., they're trying to find out how much preparation you have done to make sure you have articulated your story to what they're looking for.
Correct. Absolutely. So it comes, I mean, preparation is key in everything. Yep. Your preparation happens when you're doing your resume. You've got to know your story. When I work with people who come for coaching, I give them what I call a mining your story worksheet. And I make them go mine their story first before we even put that resume together.
Right.
They need to know it. And the same with interview, practice. You have to practice.
Definitely.
I mean, people think, oh, I'm comfortable, you know, but you know what? Everyone has a level of nerves. And if you haven't practiced enough, you're going to stuff up.
Yeah. Yep.
So I encourage people to practice with the partner, the dog. I don't care who you practice with.
The mirror, all good, all works.
Yep. Record yourself on your phone, look back at yourself, see what your body language is doing, how you're coming across, all of those things.
Yeah, so true.
Work with a coach. I actually say that even if you feel you're comfortable and good writing your own resume or your LinkedIn profile, if you're going to spend money in your career or your application preparation, do it at the interview prep. That's where I encourage people to invest in a coach to take them through the process.
Yeah, perfect. Love it. So important. And I mean, it's no secret these days that things are getting more and more and more competitive. So people have to be so sharp and succinct and articulate in their strategy and their story to really stand out. There's just no 2 ways about it.
That's right. And look, I think because we're in a market at the moment where there's a shortage of talent, some people have become a little sloppy.
I agree with that.
They think, oh, okay, the market is, you know, it's an employee's market. That means I don't have to make that much effort. Here's the thing you need to remember.
Yep.
It is expensive to rehire.
Yeah.
Companies don't like to rehire. They want to get it right the first time. That means you still have to be a standout candidate.
Correct.
Right? So just because it appears to be an employee's market, you know, you still need to do your preparation. You still need to be a standout candidate.
Definitely. And you have to show people who you are for the long term. I always say this, for your career, because it is a candidate short market at the moment, but it won't always be.
Correct.
And the tables will turn one day and recruiters and hiring managers will remember.
Absolutely. But even if you're in a company, like one of the things I encourage the people I work with, I say, okay, we've prepped you, you've landed this role. Within 6 to 12 months, you need to start looking at your next career move, whether that next career move is in that same company, or you're thinking, I want to go and try something else in maybe a consulting company or whatever. I said, you must always be looking at your next career move, because that's the only way you have longevity in your career.
Right. And I think that's a really good point. It's, you know, personal branding and polishing your execution of what you do day to day and how you interact with people is not just for the job seeker,
Correct.
for the employee as well, because the employee still wants to get promotions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Or
Never
go for
ending
bigger
story.
roles, any of those things. You know,
Yep.
if you want to be considered for anything other than the current role you hold, whether it's with your company or whether it's even moving into a different industry or going for one of the big five, you know, the Googles, Microsofts, all of those, you know, you need to be making your career moves. You need to be doing your research. You need to be making sure that you are seen, whether you're seen within your company, building your networks on LinkedIn,
Yep.
all of that.
Yep, 100%. I love it. Oh, you're
Very, very
singing
important.
my song, Wendy. You're singing my song. Now, do you think that, like in your experience, obviously you've done this a lot and you've worked with a lot of people. Do you think that some people have a natural ability or a more of an innate mindset to be able to succeed in their job search, or can you teach everybody?
Job searching is like any other skill, so it can be learned.
Great.
But I want to caveat that response by saying you need to be committed.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, you know, people always look at people's success and go, like, I always use this as an example because I'm a big J.K. Rowling Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
But people always look at her and go, wow, look at that billionaire author. And wow, look at how successful she is. And they don't look at the 10 years that went before the first Harry Potter was published.
100%.
And the blood, sweat, and tears and the rejection by, you know, a dozen publishers before someone gave her a shot at it.
That's right. Yep.
So people don't look at that. And so I believe that job searching is a skill that can be learned, but you need to be committed and you need to be consistent. It's like any other skill. Repetition is the mother of skill.
Absolutely.
So you can get good at it by doing it often. And so I also say to a lot of the people I work with, they go, oh, I got a call for an interview, but it's not really a job that I fancy. I say, go for the interview.
Exactly. Practice.
Practice.
Use it as a practice.
You know, you can always turn the job down. You can always say, you know, I have a different opportunity to come our way, whatever what your excuse is going to be, but go and do the interview practice.
Absolutely.
Nothing better than real life practice.
And you never know, you might like the job, or the consultant, if it's a consultant, might say, you know what, you're not suitable for this job, but we've just had something else come in yesterday, and that might be exactly what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
You just never know.
Yep, you never know. Only last week I heard from one of my clients saying, I went for that interview, I didn't get that job, but I was offered another one.
There you go.
Right? Literally the next day, they came back to him and said, look, you weren't the right one for that particular role, but we looked at your skills. We were really impressed with the way you conducted yourself in the interview. And so he landed another role anyway with the company.
Yeah.
Right? So
it happens all the time. And I've heard great stories in the recruitment industry where people come to interview with a recruiter and the recruiter says, you know what, you'd be a great recruiter. Have you ever thought about working as a recruitment consultant? And there have been so many opportunities that have grown just from that interview alone because a recruiter has recognized something else in that person that person never thought of.
Yes, exactly. That, you know, you turn up, you do your prep regardless, whether you're going to take the job or not, you give it your 100%.
Sure. And that allows you to articulate your story, cement your story in your mind, almost like, you know, sharpening your elevator pitch. So you'll be better every time you do it.
That's right. Practice makes perfect.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So Wendy, I'd love to kind of break down the job seeking process. I mean, how would you break down that process, and what tips and tricks and strategies can you give the audience to succeed?
So look, I think it's important to know how to market yourself.
Yep.
You need to be really good at interviews, and you need to be comfortable negotiating for what you want. Those are the 3 key steps.
Nice. Yep.
And they all require preparation. And I see a lot of people, they want to skim over that. They want to rush through preparation. They go, I just need a resume, or, you know, I just need something that's going to get me this job.
Yep.
But here's the thing, you can go to a coach or you can go to a resume writer to help you prep. that person might have the skill, the word skill, all of that to sell you. You still have to turn up in the interview.
That's right. After you've got that interview, you have to do the work.
Correct. Because I don't get to go with my clients or my people to the interview. I say to them, that is the one area where people are going to see how good you are, how well you know your work,
yep,
and how well you can articulate your value and your achievements. They're going to be you, the one that has to sell that. Definitely. So you can have the best LinkedIn profile, best resume, that's going to land you, doors are going to open for you, you're going to get the interview, you still have to do the selling. So the preparation happens across all of that whole, whether it's a resume, LinkedIn, cover letter, interview, it's a holistic process and all of it requires preparation. So with regards to marketing, LinkedIn is, I think, the best place to market yourself if you're a professional.
It is.
But here's a couple of tips around LinkedIn that I want to give people. Don't make your LinkedIn a boring LinkedIn. Tell your story, right? LinkedIn gives you your 2,600 characters to tell a compelling story. So don't have the factual, lines, project manager, not much else, and a couple of your key skills. Tell a story.
Don't put the body of your resume in the main profile page.
Correct. Correct. Put your resume in the main profile page, but use that about section to tell a compelling story. Now, I've done a lot of research around this, and even LinkedIn has published articles showing people what they consider to be great profiles, and all of them tell a compelling story. So they don't stay focused on only the person's professional story. They include, you weave in there a little bit of personality. Yes. Something about what you're interested in. Could be hobbies, could be volunteering that, takes your fancy. You want to give something to the community, whatever. Weave all of that into your story so people get a holistic picture of you. I always say to people, you get 100, I think it's 140 characters now. No, 220 characters for your headline. Use it. Definitely. Don't just have project manager there. Yeah. Say what you do. I think a stronger headline is one where you quickly tell people who you are and how you help.
Yep, I love it.
Right?
Really.
And so use the words that they use, the characters that they give you to make LinkedIn work for you.
Definitely.
I
always think to myself, everything that there is there to fill out is real estate. You have to try and leverage every little bit of real estate to the best of your advantage and not just leave things that are just going to be glossed over.
Yes. And the other tip is, please take that background LinkedIn picture off. Put something in there that represents you.
Yeah.
Or an interest, either the industry that you're working in, an interest. If you can't think of anything, nature pictures work really well. People are drawn to them. They're calming, So if you don't have a favorite kind of picture, obviously don't go put your rock band on there. This is a professional profile.
Correct.
So use common sense, but nature pictures work well, or I've had people use, DNA pictures when they work in the healthcare industry, do something that represents you.
Yeah. I've seen some great ones.
Yeah, as soon as people come to your profile, they're drawn to it. You want them to stop the scroll, so to speak, right? You want them to look at your profile. So make it compelling. Experience section of LinkedIn, there again, focus on the achievements, the value. People know what a project manager does. You don't need to regurgitate that. Talk to someone about how you achieved as a project manager.
Yeah.
That's what they're more interested in. Make sure you use as many of the skills that they allow you. I think you get 50 skills. So put as many there, and obviously put your top 3 at the top. The ones, so if it's going in an industry that you want to go in, if you're going into a project management industry, then put project manager skill right at the top.
Yeah.
You can reorder those skills. So make sure you do that. Build your connections. Build your relationships early on LinkedIn and make sure that they count. Don't be someone who starts reaching out to people because you want something.
Yeah.
Be someone who shows people love on their LinkedIn profile. So when someone's posting, when, Darren's got great content, go and like it, share it, whatever, because Darren's going to remember you. By the time Darren's out there advertising for a BA role or a management consultant role, you know, and you've shown him love, your name is going to somehow trigger something in his memory, you know, and he's likely to then connect with you. Because let's face it, when we're selling, it is about knowing a brand of a person or brand of a company. If I'm buying a dishwasher, I'm going to go do my research. I'm not just going to go and buy from anybody.
That's right.
I'm also going to look at their reviews, which brings me to recommendations. Build those on LinkedIn. Build those on LinkedIn. You make it easier. There are quite a number of hiring managers that go and look at LinkedIn recommendations to save themselves the trouble of having to do that reference check.
Oh,
you know,
I think it's such an important section that not a lot of people use.
Not a lot of people use it, but that's one of the things that
one recommendation or two recommendations. I mean,
yep.
There's so much potential there.
Yeah, I say to people, if you're in a company, you need to be, say you're there for 12 months, you need to try and get at least 3 recommendations from people that you've worked with in that company.
Absolutely.
Be building them, you know, every few, sort of as you change jobs, get those recommendations going, you know, build them up. They're really, really important because they are like your customer reviews.
100%. Yep.
A brand review is going to be, people are going to go look at that and they go, what is the customer saying about this person?
If someone has 10, 20 fantastic recommendations, you're straight away going to be drawn in favor of that candidate.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And I've been doing it with mine for ages. Yep. Still do it, you know.
Yep, me too.
And I encourage a lot of the people I work with to do the same. Build those recommendations, but obviously build your connections first. Don't simply go and ask someone for a recommendation when you haven't nurtured a relationship with them.
Definitely.
You know, it's all about nurturing, and it's about genuine relationships, and that takes time. It's a long game. Understand that.
Yep.
So play the long game and play it consistently.
It's just like real life.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't go up to someone on the street and say, can I borrow $20?
Yeah, that's right.
You first get to know them before you say, can I borrow $20?
That's right. That's right.
You know.
Now, with regards to the interview process, I mean, as I said before, preparation is key. Preparation is key, and dress for success. You know, whether you're doing an in-person, most of the interviews now are via Zoom. Make sure that from the top up, you're professional. Yeah. You know, but also I always say to people, actually be professional all the way through, because there's been times when people have had to stand up. They need a glass of water, whatever, and suddenly the tracky pants are showing. He's showing, the shirt is showing, but then the tracky pants are showing. That's not a good impression.
Yeah. And also you feel differently when you're all dressed up.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I say to people, dress so that you can feel empowered.
Yeah.
You know, when you're doing virtual interviews, you know, make sure your backgrounds are decent. You don't want the washing showing up on the Zoom or on the Microsoft Teams. Yeah. So if your space is small and you don't have enough room to move things out of the way, use a virtual background.
Definitely. You don't want people walking backwards and forwards. You don't want the dog or the cat coming in and out.
Correct.
Bird flying around. It's a disaster.
Yeah. Be professional. And then, you know your behavioral questions. There's 20 common behavioral questions. You know, you can go to Google and you'll find them, and they may be worded differently by different people, but they're pretty much the same. Know your answers to your questions. Have strong examples. I teach the situation, action, outcome process, SAO. That's what I call it. Some people call it STAR. They include task or something. But I say, have your situation, the actions you took, and the outcome.
Yep.
You know, have your examples, know them so well. You need to know them so well that if I called you at 3 a.m. in the morning and asked you the question, you need to be able to answer it.
Oh, boy.
You know, that's how comfortable you need to be with the questions.
Yep.
Also know your role-specific questions, right? There are going to be some role-specific questions. Have examples of your work.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a solution architect that gets a question around how you would do a process, describe the process, the tools that you use, all of that. Know what's required. Do your homework. Know the company. Chances are you're going to get a question about the company. So know the company, know their mission statement, know where they're going. One of the good ways, another tip I give my clients is I say, go and look at the company's social media for the day. Like if your interview's today, go and look at it in the morning, find something that they've posted that morning or the night before. And when they ask you this question about the company, throw it out.
Lovely. What a great tip. I love that.
You know, say to them, oh, I saw you posted about, and it could be that they're involved in philanthropic work and something. You say, I loved your post about whatever you posted around the philanthropic work. It's really encouraging to see that you do that and that you give your people a day off to go and do volunteer work. And whatever they're posting, it doesn't matter. You know, make sure you're ahead of the game, because that's a really easy way to do it, right? Sure. You go and look at their social media, you grab a quick little tip from what they focused on for that particular day or that particular week, and you kind of throw it back in the answer, because that's going to impress anybody. It would impress me that someone knew what the company was doing this morning on social media.
Yeah, you know, half the time they would know even more than the interviewer.
Correct.
Absolutely, and it's so important. It shows such commitment and preparation and strategy.
Yes, and then you know, the other tip for interviews is have good etiquette and manners. Goes a long way. You know, turn up looking professional. Don't turn up with a coffee in the hand or anything like that. You know, if you in-person interview, it's okay to have a glass of water close by. Most recruiters, when you go and see them, or hiring managers, they'll offer you a glass of water anyway, right? So even if you're on Zoom or in person, that's okay. But don't turn up with, you know, eating your lunch or eating your brekkie or your muffin or any of that. Just be professional, pleases and thank yous, nice strong handshake. You know, all of that goes a long way. And always thank people for the interview. And a note works really well. It's old school, but because it's old school and so unexpected, it makes you memorable.
Huge. And I'm going to add two little things as well. Be early.
Yes.
And test your technology before you start.
Absolutely.
No matter how many times I get on an interview with people and hold on, I can't hear you. Hold on. I'm just connecting. Let me change computers. Let me reboot. Let me change microphones. And I've just wasted 10 minutes.
Yes.
Such a frustration.
Yes, with virtual interviews, that is key. You need to test your technology and preferably have a noise cancelling headset on, because you don't know when the neighbor's going to start yelling or someone's going to start drilling outside or whatever, right? So you need to cut out the noise. It's all common sense, but yeah, I agree with you. Testing the technology is key, because that is frustrating, especially making sure your audio works. Because once someone's seen you, if, for example, you lose video, you can at least continue that interview with the audio, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So make sure that the audio is working and it's working well.
Yeah.
Really, really important. And then the other key point I made was negotiation.
Yeah.
You need to know how to do that. That means you need to research. So it's up to you to know what the market rates are for the role you're going for. Now, some people don't know that when they walk into a job. And so they don't know how to answer that question, or they don't know how to ask for what they want. And I always say to people, never use a figure, because you will be held to that figure. Use a range. So if you know a role is between 140 and 160,000, go for somewhere in the middle. That way you don't feel shortchanged, you know. So you need to do your research around the role, around the market rate, and also around conditions. So a lot of people are afraid to ask how the company works or what their policies are. But I think it's really important, because, for example, right now, a lot of people have worked remotely.
Definitely.
So they've gotten used to dropping the kiddies off at school and things. So if you end up going for a role where their policy is you need to start at 8:30, but you've got to drop the kids off at 8:45, that's not going to work.
No.
Right? Some people have moved out regional now. Companies might be coming saying everybody needs to be back in the office 5 days a week. So if you don't know that, that's actually not going to work for you.
Yeah.
So
there's even a new term now. It's called hybrid. I've seen that lately.
Yes,
It's the new
hybrid.
term that's been born through this period, hybrid. Which
Hybrid.
work a
Little
combination
bit of remote, little bit of in office.
Yeah.
And you need to ask those questions. You know, when I was going for that role that gave me that big jump, that income, I was a single mom. My kid was 6 months old. My first question was, how do you support single parents?
Love that. Great.
Right? Because for me, if that couldn't work, I wasn't going to be able to deliver my best to them.
Yep.
Right. So I negotiated back in those days when remote work and all of that wasn't really a thing. I negotiated working mostly from home.
Yeah.
One day in the office, and I held all my meetings on that one day with all my people that I needed to have my meetings with. And then I worked from home. So that one day I had my daughter taken care of by my parents,
right.
You know, or by daycare or, you know, whatever it was. But that was very important to me. And it's something that I negotiated throughout my career. Every single role, even the big ones that paid me the big bucks, I need to know that you're supporting me as a single parent.
Yeah. And I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. And as long as you're realistic and reasonable, yes. I think a lot of people in this period are also taking it a little too far.
Yes, but the other thing to remember too is when you ask in negotiation, when you ask for something that you want, you have to be able to give them something that they want.
Yep.
You need to be able to deliver. So, you know, for me, I took pride. I was so grateful that I did get the support from my bosses that I over-delivered.
Yeah.
I made myself available to them. Like there were times when there was one time I was working for a manager who was, he had to travel to Thailand, you know, and so obviously time difference. I would be available to him to the end of the Thailand hours.
Yep.
You know, my daughter was asleep. She was young. I could support through the evening, the early evening.
Right.
And I did that. And I didn't mind doing that because he had supported me.
Yep.
You know, and so you need to be giving back. You need to show them that you can give them something that, because nobody's going to negotiate where it only goes your way.
That's right.
It's got to be a two-way street.
You can't have 5 days a week from home and never get involved in any shift work, for example.
Correct.
You have to give and take.
Absolutely. Because with projects, we do get to that point at implementation stage, and I've done many of those, where you are required to work through the weekend.
Yeah, it happens.
You're required to work through the night because the systems are shut off, you implementing. So there always has to be that give and take. And you need to make sure that when you're required, you're available.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what negotiation is all about. It's a two-way street. Both people have to win in the deal.
True. And I just want to add, when it comes to negotiating your salaries, work with your recruiter if you've gone through a recruiter.
Correct.
Make sure that you're in sync, because I can't tell you how many times someone will say to me, I want this much money, or a range between this and this. And then when they go to the interview, they jump on an extra $20,000. And then there's a whole disconnect between what I pitched them at and what they ask for. It already destroys their whole credibility.
It does. Absolutely. Because here's the thing, the recruiter works for the company. Now, I've had so many clients come to me and get irritated. You know, this recruiter's not working for me. And I go, well, he doesn't work for you, or she doesn't work for you.
That's right. You don't pay.
They work for the company that pays them. That means their job is to find the best candidate, a candidate that they can trust, a candidate that they feel comfortable putting forward, that they know is not only going to fulfill the requirements of the role, but make that recruiter look good and make that recruiter shine.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, if there's another opportunity, you're going to be the last person on their list.
Yep. Right.
So, you know, I totally agree. Don't go and try and grab an extra 10 or 20 grand. You talk to the recruiter, you go back and forth with the recruiter. That's what the recruiter's job is. One of their jobs is to negotiate with the client and on your behalf too.
Definitely. You
know, because it's such a cycle of relationships. And people forget that, you know, when they become consumed by what they want, they forget that relationships is the most important thing. And if you stuff it up once, it is going to haunt you.
Yeah.
Because the world is small. right?
Definitely.
I mean, I've worked with people who maybe my candidates weren't the right fit for the role, but they've worked with other recruiters and they go, hey, you know, Brian or Mary or Sue, I know you've got that role. I've got this candidate. They're not the right one for the roles I have, but would you have a look at their resume?
Yep.
Right. So the whole cycle of giving and relationship building is extended far beyond simply you and that person.
Definitely. And, you know, it's about being authentic, always putting your best foot forward, always being
Correct.
trustworthy, being ethical, being a person of integrity, and opportunities will come to you if you do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Be your word. I always say integrity and being your word in everything is absolute key, because you will be remembered for the good and for the bad.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely, Wendy. You're singing my song. I mean, that's really, really incredible insight and strategic thinking into how to go about those three parts of the job seeking process.
Yes, absolutely. And look, you have to, there's preparation required, consistency required, and relationship building. And I call them relationship runways. I say to people, if you think of an airplane taking off, the plane builds up and then takes off. If a plane just went and took off, it's crashing, right? So it's similarly, when you're wanting to build your relationships, think of it as a runway. You need to gain momentum.
I like it.
So nurture it. Build it to that momentum where it can take off. That requires time and effort. It requires integrity. It requires sincerity, authenticity, and give and take. And be prepared to give first. But don't be the one that goes in there asking.
Absolutely. And you need those relationships even while you're flying. You need those relationships to stay in the air.
That's right. That's right. You have got to be friendly with that pilot. You've got to be behaving, you know.
Beautiful. Yes. Well, Wendy, I really appreciate that. I think that's sensational insight. And I'd love to give the audience a bit more insight into how you work. So, you know, I'd love you to tell us a bit more about how you work. What's your process like? Who do you work with?
So I work with mostly corporate professionals. A lot of my clients come from the information technology industry because I was in that industry myself. I know it well, still have a lot of connections in that industry. But I work in three ways. So it's either a do-it-yourself process where people can come and do some of my training courses. So I have a couple of training courses, or a done-for-you process where I actually do the whole lot, the resume writing, the LinkedIn, the cover letter, interview coaching, all of that.
Fantastic.
Right, so there's that. And then I also work with people who want to have a go at it themselves. And so I offer the editing and reviewing service.
Ah, good. Nice.
Right. So there's three ways that I work with people. And I, as I said, with mostly corporate professionals. But look, I've worked with everybody. I tend to lean more towards the corporate side because that's the side I know really well. And information technology is the side I know really well. But I've worked with graduates, you know, who have come straight out of uni and they don't know how to position themselves. I've worked with graduates. I've worked with people across a range of industries, you know, from catering industry to healthcare to you name it. Done them all.
And I'm assuming you could work through global barriers as well. You could work anywhere in the world.
Absolutely, yes. So I have clients. So a big chunk of my clients come out of the Southeast Asian market. So Singapore, Hong Kong, all of those. Couple of clients out of the US, and a very small percentage out of the UK. So Australia, New Zealand, you know, Southeast Asia and the US primarily.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So I work globally. I mean, now you can, right? And I'm a writer and Zoom is my friend, or Microsoft Teams is my friend. So everything happens through email or through any kind of training, interview, practice, coaching happens via Zoom or Microsoft Teams.
Amazing. Well, Wendy, I'm absolutely blown away by the value you've given us today. You know, and we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. So
absolutely,
anybody can really get a lot of benefit and value working with you. So I do urge people to get in touch with Wendy.
Yes.
How can they get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
So the best way is happycareerhub.com. That's the website. And there's actually 3 resources on there at the moment that people can go and make use of, right? There's a little mini presentation like called Your Next Career Move or Right Career Moves.
Yep.
There's a scorecard, a career scorecard. I think that's an interesting one to do so people can see where they're sitting in terms of their scores and how they're managing their career. So, you know, go and have a look and then reach out to me via those channels, and obviously LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Wendy A. Alexander is my LinkedIn handle. So find me there.
Definitely. And I'll make sure I put all those links in the show notes for everybody. So please do contact Wendy and get in touch.
Yes.
Now, Wendy, I always like to give my guests the last word. Anything else you want to leave us with today, just in terms of what we've been talking about? Any last minute tips or tricks or mindset hacks for people?
Well, mindset is super important. So, and that applies for preparation, knowing your story, confidence, interview, it goes across the board. And if you're struggling with mindset, then get onto tactics that can help you, you know, meditation, coaches, any of those things that can help uplift the mindset. That's important. Building relationships for me is key.
I love it.
So Darren here, all of you can see him. You all need to get onto Darren's LinkedIn, because this is a recruiter. This is someone you want to build a relationship with, you know, and I saw a lot of Darren's posts and I liked them. I really like what you were doing. And so that's how we kind of reached out and came to be having this conversation.
That's right.
So, you know, go and give Darren some love on his posts. And here's another tip. Even if you're not the right candidate for a role, you're working with a recruiter or hiring manager, if you know the right candidate, refer them on. Trust me, you're going to be remembered. That's how I landed so many gigs without ever having to go through an application process, because if I wasn't suitable for a role, but I knew people that were, I would send them on to that recruiter, or I'd send them on to the hiring manager. And trust me, that relationship building is gold.
And the universe will give back.
Absolutely. I never had to job hunt after a certain time.
Yeah.
Right. It just came to me. I went from contract to contract, role to role, and had a very, very successful corporate career and loved it.
I love it.
I love what I do now.
You know, it's so true. You've really hit a nerve. I mean, the stronger you build those relationships, they will feed the rest of your career for you. You won't have to do anything. You know, if you really look at things from that point of view, opportunities will come to you that you never dreamed of, because you put the time in to build those relationships.
Absolutely. Key to everything.
Yep. So true. It really is. And I love the relationship runway. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. Make sure your relationship runways are strong so that plane can take off. Career can take off.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Wendy, really appreciate you coming on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We'll have to have you back again. I think we'll definitely have to have you back again.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Oh, awesome. And any of the audience, if you have any particular questions for Wendy, or you'd like it to come back and talk about a particular aspect of what we've been speaking about, please reach out to us and let us know, because we'd love to do that. But I'd certainly urge you to get in touch with Wendy and check out her website, and get in touch with her if you need any insights or coaching experience or strategy, because she's definitely a world of knowledge in her area, and she's fantastic.
Thank you, Darren. That's been great. I loved it. That was really cool. That was super cool.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, everybody out there, I hope you really enjoyed that as much as we did. We'll see you very, very soon for another episode of Soul Searching, the Soul Recruitment Podcast.